Yes. All right. That was just in time. I actually just walked over to Brian to say to him, can you please, kind of let me know when it's time to button things up, because I tend to, ramble. Anyways, hello family. My name's Alyssa, and I'm a grateful, recovering heroin addict and of any other substance action of which would make me feel good or let me get outside of myself. Hi. Okay. So, like I said, because I do become tangential and I like to ramble a lot, I wanted to try to stick to a theme of which I guess can kind of center me in trying to make my message in regards to what was different for me this time around in getting clean. Only because it took me a lot of times bumping my head before I was actually successful. So that theme being surrender. Okay. This is from the big book, and it says, surrender is a complete handling over our wills of God, a reckless abandonment of ourselves and all that we have, all that we think that we are, and everything we hold dear. To God, to do what he likes with. So many times in life, we want to make surrender to God. But just when he started to actually work in our lives, we rebelled and got scared and resisted and began to fill our lives with so much self that God couldn't reach us. We run around on self-propulsion from this place to that place and avoided stillness at all costs. I think the fear of failure is really something else. Fear of disappointment, fear of wasting time or toil or money, fear of ridicule. These anxieties are invented enemies of our own making, and they can't defeat us unless we use them as weapons against ourselves, because we just don't have to do that, right? Let's see. I was born, tiny, really tiny town, into an environment of which was very chaotic, let's say. And that's a very kind word. I honestly, to this day, really don't know if they make a word for the environment of which I, was used to. So to say the least, even still with multiple years clean, it's hard for me to stay still. And you'll see that about me. I look like I probably had a pot of coffee and of which I haven't, and coffee actually calms me down. But so both my parents are addicts, and of all substances, and I pretty much, in short, I guess, pretty much follow the same path. I'm not going to, sit here and elaborate on many war stories, only because they're really not much different than any of the rest of yours. They just have different names, different places, and, all of those things. I'm already getting emotional. So, with that being said, I went to rehab first time, 12 years old. Which was a long, just the beginning of a very long, I guess now history of, multiple attempts at that. So I've been to treatment 32 times in total. So there really wasn't much of anything that, I didn't really, what game I didn't know, what manipulation, that was very second nature to me, I guess I should say. I was my own worst enemy. The last 5 years, I guess, is what I'll mainly focus on of my addiction, only because it started with a path of self-destruction I'm not only blessed, but damn near a miracle, like a walking anomaly, to have survived it and made it through it. Still with my children intact, and my marriage, a career, and a house, and and all of these things that I can actually, sit before you and possess as a recovering person, So that 5-year path of destruction started with one of the most life-changing experiences I think I've really ever still experienced to this day. And I have 3 children. I have a son. His name is Elijah. He's 21. Beautiful boy. And I have a daughter named Sapphire. She's 18. And another one named Cindy Lou, who is named after my mother. I'm sorry. So yeah, the beginning of that path of destruction was the night that my mother overdosed, and or the day that my mother overdosed, and it was December 22nd, 3 days before Christmas, and my mother was my mother, of course. You only get one in life. And not only was she my mother, but she was my best friend. And she was a relationship that I could never sever on my own, despite the many attempts that either one of us made to get clean. My mother was 46 years old. When she died, we left the house that morning, and we were going out boosting, and for the Christmas gifts, of which we had already sold, to replace them for the kids so they had something to open up on Christmas morning. And to get off E, right? Yeah, long story short, my mother overdosed on fentanyl, and I didn't know that she had taken Valium that morning. So it was pretty, because we keep secrets, right? Because we don't want to share, because that's the nature of being a junkie. So when I, the person we were with that was going to be driving us around, he's like, Alyssa, we got to get out of here. My mom's going to be home soon. She can't see her like that. We got to go. And obviously you're not going to be able to go out and do anything. So he went to drive us back home, and, it was snowing. Actually, it was a blizzard. And I was nodding in the back seat, and when we pulled into the driveway, I was in the back seat, my mother was in the front, and she wasn't moving. And I tilted her head back, and she was blue. They did get her pulse back on the way to the hospital. She was seizing, and, it was a horrific experience. And I had almost lost her 2 months before that, too. She had had a heart infection from a stent. So, so we thought, it was a second chance of, at something, of which we repeatedly fucked up on a regular basis. So with that, I took my mother off life support. For many, many years, and even still to this day, I felt like I killed her. Gasping for air, and not really preparing me nor telling me what to expect. And to this day, I'm told that it's different for everyone. Yeah, different. That's a word. A very palpable word. They came and took my children. About a week, I want to say, after that happened, because my mother actually, was paddled in my home. my daughter, in front of my daughter, who was 3 at the time. And God does not remember it. And my son was 5, and my mother was 46. So that's only, 4 years older than I am right now, sitting here before you, And I got a lot of life left to live. And I know that now. But that 5 years, boy, whew, if I wasn't trying to kill myself, I don't know what that was. It was, I lived the type of life where all my, I had always had like 3 jobs, and, so that made me functional. I was the junkie that altogether worked at the jail, and I kept my works in my locker and would go and was sick by lunch and had to basically go down to the college, meet my dealer, and then break multiple rules and not go through the Sally ports and security to get back into where I worked at the time, not realizing and being so legitimately out of it that there were droplets of blood on my t-shirt, my long sleeve t-shirt in the middle of summer, which was also functional for me, something of which a norm that I didn't see anybody else, I was like, what do you mean? Oh, no, I just cold-blooded, don't worry about it. It gets really cold inside when they have the air conditioning on, so that's why I wear a long sleeve shirt to work, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, because I had always, like I said, I had lost my point. I'm sorry about that. Because I had always had a job, and because I had never, done all these things that I more or less witnessed throughout my entire life, like all those not yets that became yets, and, I had a job until I didn't. I sucked dick for the next one, or I didn't suck dick for the next one until I did, right? And when I started prostituting, my marriage was over. My children were living with my father, who had 19 years clean at the time, but because I had no fucking boundaries, I kept going there high. And eventually he got high. After being clean for 19 years, which was only the start of another whirlwind of which my children would have to then watch and witness and endure. Wake up hungry. There's nothing like turning tricks on the same corner that your young son catches the bus and looking at him in the window, rolling away and saying, "Baby, I'm so sorry that I'm doing this to you," and him going, "Mommy, it's okay, I still love you." Eventually, my husband and I, we've been together 25, 26 years. I forget. I'm not real good with like anniversaries, birthdays. I'm not very, sentimental, and traditions kind of didn't exist, in my household, obviously, because what day was it, right? One day was like 1 week. Or 1 week was one big day. That's what I meant to say. Sorry. So yeah, I had definitely surrendered to the concept of which I was going to die high, and saw no hope in sight whatsoever. Because I thought, and I figured, holy shit, if I could hold a fucking day together, if I could not shoot dope, if I could not fucking smoke crack and turn a trick and all those things, that I wouldn't be able to fucking live with the things that I've done. I wouldn't be able to forgive myself, nor feel worthy of a life in recovery. So, that's funny. I'm a therapist, so I'm like, no fucking tissues, ever. Like, they're a fucking disruption. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. I am, like, snotting all over my sleeve over here, which is not very sanitary, so. But since then, and another thing, and this isn't very, it's not very HA, oriented and whatnot, like, and I've been told multiple things as far as, like, a lot of people ask me how long you've been clean, and I really, honestly, I don't keep track. Like, I don't know, because I never really wanted to try to start wrapping my head around the concept of multiple years, because I felt like I would feel somehow like that I would fuck with my own self and convince myself that I was somehow cured or different because of the amount of years that I had. So because I feel so strongly like bound to the concept of being no further removed than the person picking up a white chip, I really don't, celebrate. Because I really honestly feel strongly about the concept of just having just right now, like this moment, and needing to embrace it for everything that it has to offer to me. One thing I do want to mention, and it's kind of backtracking a little bit, is my two older children had been taken from me, yes, after my mother overdosed in my home, but I had a brief intermission there of where I had, like, for instance, okay, Elijah, he's my only boy, and he's my only boy. Enough said for anybody who's a mother. And then my daughter Sapphire was born 2 months early, and I went into labor at midnight, literally, and she's born on my grandmother's birthday, who I lost when I was 16 to cancer. So my third child is named after my mother, Cindy Lou, and I got pregnant with her immediately after my mother died, which again is an anomaly because it should not have been possible. I hadn't had my period in I don't even know how long, because my body just couldn't, it was a miracle, of which, actually saved me, because I was able, to pull, well, I wasn't clean, because, they put me on methadone, and I got up to 140 milligrams, which was a fucking nightmare, let me just tell you, for nobody who's ever experienced methadone withdrawal. It causes a physical, in my body, just even thinking about having endured it. And, that saved my life for that period of time, because had I not taken that break, had I not had that beautiful child, God only knows, With that, okay, so, yay, I got my signal, so I can bring it home now. All right, so here's the hope, right? I guess several of the things that, for instance, I'm a counselor, right? In the field of addictions and substance use, whatever, treatment. And that causes a, I don't know what the word would be, but you get it. It makes my life difficult as far as being an active member, in the rooms and whatnot. Do your boundaries, and I'm busting them all over the place. But I was taught a long time ago to never say no when you're asked to do service work. So there you go. Honesty is paramount. It is absolutely and unarguably, it's a deal breaker Like, if you cannot be honest about everything with everyone, especially yourself, then you're going to falter. And you may not fail right away, but you will eventually. You know, I was that addict who, when I first got clean, like, I thought I could still, like, keep relationships with sugar daddies and, like, save my marriage. Like, you want to talk about distorted thinking? Like, that's fucked up. But we tend to be our own worst enemy. And, you know, surrendering to just everything, like, because, like I said, anything that makes you feel good, money, scratch-offs, like, whatever, it doesn't matter, to get outside of yourself. And I guess what I've done, you know, in the multiple years that I have been able to pull together, I embraced my fucking crazy. And it made it work for me. You know, I don't, you know, when you can ask anyone, I don't, like, hold back. I am myself. I'm very honest. I do all that uncomfortable confrontation shit because there's just no time for fucking anything else. And that's just, like, honestly the way I feel. Because you're just saying what everyone else is really thinking. Anyway, right? Like, fucking cut through the bullshit. And just get to the fucking point. And the point is that, like, this is a better option. You know, I never, ever, ever thought in a million fucking years that I could own a house, have a car note, you know, be probably going to my daughter's graduation, you know, at the end of this school year, and, you know, like, showing up for shit. Paying for my dad to come visit me on the holidays. Sending him money when he needs it, you know. Having my bank account frozen because I had 8 accruing child support cases because my children had been bounced around so fucking much. And paying that shit off, you know. And it was a process. But it was a process of which was survivable. And I'm grateful to be able to be sitting here to tell you about it today. And that's all I got.